powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sports.
Salut tout le monde. Hey everybody. Now that was fun. That was quite the game. But hey, this is all good. This is, in the long run, this is what you want to see the Montreal Canadiens do. Maybe not 10-2, and maybe not the way they did it in December, but long term, I'm sure all of you are watching the World Juniors. You know what's at stake here. We're talking about a generational talent, so it would be fantastic if they get a shot at that. As per usual, Claire's in the chat, because Claire's awesome, so is Robert, and so is David. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. I'm going to keep it short and sweet tonight, just because I don't know how much more Habs stuff all of you can handle. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our ad copy and get right into it. We're obviously going to talk about Cole Caulfield. We're going to talk about what you want to see next year as well, because it's been a, kind of a confusing year. And we can talk about our best moments, our least favorite moments, poutine, mango, whatever you want. What a bet! You can do it at Sports Interaction Canada's Sportsbook. The NFL is in full swing. You have World Cup just ended. Now you have the hockey season that's about the halfway point. You can bet pregame, live in play. There's also a ton of prop bets. And it's made for Canadians by Canadians. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. I'm waking here. All right, so, bonne année. Salut Maxime, bonne année. Oui, absolument. Écoute, puis l'autre affaire, là, je veux dire à mes amis, mes francophones, moi, je vais commencer à pousser pour faire des game over en français. Là. Je trouve que ça serait intéressant parce que j'aime mieux sacrer en français. Ça va tellement mieux. So, for those that don't understand what I just said in French, I just said I love you all. Thank you so much for coming. All right, so, tonight, rough game, obviously. Cole Caulfield on pace for 47 goals, though. So that's pretty exciting because we've seen recently, if Caulfield and Suzuki aren't going, the rest of the team is not going. So 47 goals, I don't know if he's going to be able to reach that, honestly. It's going to be very, very difficult just because nowadays teams are really honing in on these two guys. And it makes sense. It makes me think of back in the day with Max Pacioretty, essentially. If you shut down Desharnais' line, game over, right? So obviously the Canadiens are early part of a rebuild, but it would, it's nice to see those guys find their rhythm a little bit more because they're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting going forward. Salut! Hey, Paper Dolls, how's it going? Paper Dolls, always here. So, let me know what you thought about Jake Allen as well, because I think he's injured. It's always sketchy to start speculating about health. Mais mon Jacques Alain did not look very good tonight. I felt like he was, his lateral transitions were just off. And I also feel like St. Louis wanted to give Montembeault the night off no matter what. But leaving your starter in for 9 goals, I guess, it's 9 goals or 7 goals. What are you going to do, right? It's, it's always a different, what's the word for it? Anyways, I'm forgetting my idioms. But I feel like there's something going on with the goalies, if I'm being perfectly honest at this point. Yeah, Allen did not seem steady. Hey, Nick Leroy. Hey, the Bruins are having one of the best seasons in NHL history. Remember, the Canadiens aren't, so this is your time to shine until Connor Bedard scores on you for the next 20 years. So, yeah, absolutely. We're going to also talk about the best moments of the year. So, one of the things that I wanted to do was kind of go over the transition of the Montreal Canadiens. So, we're going to talk about from the moment Jeff Gordon got hired, and obviously Marc Benjamin got fired, and kind of the steps they've taken on the ice since then. As Paper Doll says, and Claire, yeah, Allen looked off, right? It's not just me. And I'm not going to trade him tonight because that's a little unfair. But I think we also saw kind of a normalization of this season because the Canadiens, let's be honest, you can't use deserve in sports, but they probably shouldn't have won as many games as they did to start the season. Now, here is the great part. The Montreal Canadiens also have not only did they have the worst December in the NHL, according to the underlying numbers and the standings, they also have the most difficult strength of schedule from here to the end of the season. So fans of the tank, fans that are watching Joshua Roy score alongside Connor Bedard right now, by the way, Roy scored a goal. You'll be happy to hear that because really, statistically speaking, the Canadiens have a very healthy chance at finishing in the bottom 3. It's gonna take a lot of suck. They're gonna have to really focus, but honestly, it's within sight. And Jake Allen, even though he allowed 9 goals tonight, he's actually one of the best goalies in the league in terms of goals saved above average. So that, again, I don't want to insult him, but that should normalize a little bit too. Well, today went a long way in normalizing, and as Jen says, today was probably the first giving up example I've seen under St. Louis. It kind of reminded me. Well, I was going to try to think of one game under Deschamps, but it reminded me of that whole thing. But, we haven't really seen the Canadiens give up like that. And that was a little disheartening to see. However, you want to see your young guys play well. And I think that Cole Caulfield absolutely played well. Yes, the Bruins can absolutely dunk on the Montreal Canadiens. I feel like that's legitimate. Especially since Pasternak is becoming, in my opinion, like a mini... I was going to say a mini Ovechkin, but he just has that ability to score from the same area and you can't stop him. So that is always fun to see. I always wanted Pasternak to be drafted in Montreal because it rhymes. All right, mes amis français comprennent ça. So, moving on to the rest of today, I was actually wondering what everyone thought about the Uri Slafkovsky situation because... today, Philip Michar, 2 big assists for Slovakia. They lost to Switzerland, but they're advancing. They're advancing in the medal round, and that's important because last year, Slovakia, if I remember correctly, they were tied for the last play-in spot, but they lost out because of goal differential. So, to me, though, it kind of feels silly now seeing Slafkovsky out of the top 6 and not at the World Juniors. I don't really understand what's going on there, and we shouldn't panic. No reason to panic, but I just feel like they're giving a chance to every veteran, or a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th chance to every veteran that hasn't scored since the Soviet Union fell. And why wouldn't you give that chance to Slafkovsky or Richard? I'm being a huge couch GM, and it's a lot easier that way. But I don't understand the insistence of propping up those veteran wingers. What's the best that's going to happen? Your pick will go from the 5th round to the 4th round. Ça vaut pas la peine. Yes, Goalie Nation is in shambles, Paper Doll. It's unfortunate because I thought Caden Goalie was having pretty much just the best possible scenario season for him. All his points came at even strength, if I remember correctly. He's top 10 rookie even strength scoring. That includes forwards. So he was logging so many minutes, and Caden Goalie has the ability to remain stoic while he's the guy. Everything is fine there while everything's on fire, but he means it, right? So he's so focused, laser focused. I know this will bother him, but it will help the tank. I'll be honest, because even though goalie doesn't have the best underlying numbers, I think we can probably point to the cause. Overbearing usage. Like the guy's been playing 25 minutes a night. He went from the WHL, from the Oil Kings to the Canadiens. See, that's a heck of a step up. So I really hope it's not serious in his case. Obviously, knee injuries are always a little sketchy. But if I know him, he'll want to be on the ice as soon as possible. Yeah, I like that point by Jen. Alex Ovechkin muted, and you know what's so cool about Ovechkin, and I think obviously we're not, there's the whole political side, which is a minefield. We're not going to get into that right now. It's a little late in the year to talk about, maybe tomorrow morning, but man, he's got that passion for the game, right? And I often dream of what it would have ended up like if he was in Montreal, because I and again, I'm not taking anything away from Washington, but I think he would have became, he still is one of the most popular athletes, but he would have been pretty crazy in Montreal. Just as, remember the All-Star game? He wore a fisherman's hat, and Habs fans lost their minds. So that was really fun to see. And yeah, his muted celebration, what's important here is that he is an enthusiastic guy. He loves to celebrate every goal, and I love that. I loved all the moves. When he scored and the stick was on fire. I love when Teemu Selanne, when he scored his 76th, the sniper. I love players celebrating, but that was a proper time to mute it a little bit. You could tell. The Canadiens are already at New Year's brunch, So, unfortunately, pour les mamans, it wasn't the best game, but I'll tell you right now, the mothers don't care. They actually will be able to provide their children, their grown children, their adult large boys, they'll be able to actually console them a little bit, which is for every mom, that's kind of a fun thing to do because you get that, in junior hockey, your son essentially gets, I was going to say ripped away from you. They're not Jedi, but, your child goes away, lives with another Abillet family. So you kind of lose those developmental years. And it's always nice for them to, I love the idea of the mother's trip. Sérieux, là? Very fun. Carl Willier, non, mais, ok, je vais répondre ça en français. On n'a pas encore décidé de faire un game over en français, mais moi je pousse. Moi je pousse beaucoup parce que vraiment, là, honnêtement, je trouve que c'est. Moi, quand je travaillais pour les Canadiens, on faisait un peu les deux, anglais-français. Mais là, à cette heure, évidemment, ceux qui nous payent, ils veulent en anglais, mais je vais pousser. Je vais essayer de faire mon mieux pour. Au pire, aller, on peut en faire 2-3 durant l'année. Ça serait vraiment intéressant, d'après moi. OK, so, Paper Doll saying here, huge issue for Slafkovsky has been a lack of consistent line mates. I agree. Now, the two players that he's played with the most, right? Actually, I'm gonna allow the chat to figure out the two guys that Juraj Slafkovsky in his rookie season has played with the most. But last I checked, it was 18 different line combinations for Juraj Slafkovsky, and the one where he played with the most, which you're going to give me the answer in the chat, I think it was like 65. It's not a lot. So essentially, his usage has been as bumpy as a Montreal road in the summer. It's really been confusing, I think, for him. They wanted him to find his rhythm, but it's kind of difficult to do when you're getting the carpet pulled out of you all the time. And the other side is that why wouldn't you give him a little bit, like, what are we losing here in 9-2? As someone just mentioned here, the 9-2 loss really sucks, and I get it. So, Sammy, it sucks. But that means if the veterans have checked out, maybe you give the youth. Jeez, hello, fellow youth. But maybe you give a guy like Anthony Richard a shot back in the lineup, because I don't think he had the best last two games, but hey, man, he's trying. Comme il met de l'effort, and that's what's important. He's actually trying. So to me, yeah, Evans is one. There you go. Paper Doll's got it. Evans is one. So for me, honestly, I'd like to see just a little more fight from the get-go from the Canadiens. Habs fans are okay with the Habs losing this year. And this is going to sound so stupid. Well, like most things I say, but it's all about losing the right way. All right? So tonight was not the right way whatsoever. It was a difficult, but it kind of put the punctuation on where the Canadiens should be at this point. Because they really shouldn't be this high in the standings, and they aren't. But with about 45 games to go, like, the outlook is gloomy. But for fans of the draft, this is the best possible situation. Just to let you know, the Habs controlled under 40% of the high danger chances in December. Like, these are percentages I created in high school. This is like my realm. But they aren't skipping every single class, and their expected goals was at 37%. So, and the crazy part is they've controlled, I believe, about 50% of the goals this season. So they've gotten a ton of puck luck. Samuel Montembeault and Jake Allen held the fort. And let's be honest, it's all about raw talent for their goals. So Suzuki and Caulfield. And I don't want to throw any grenades out there, but I'm going to soon investigate whether it's time to split those two up. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that in Montreal, but it could be the time to split Caulfield and Nick Suzuki up, because it's really difficult to find someone that actually jives well with them. Kirby Dach does, but then without Sean Monahan in your lineup, ça fait quoi là, à cette heure, là? Basically, you're missing centers, and Dvorak's been pretty decent defensively, but offensively it's been a struggle. So I would perhaps start the new year, and I know Habs fans are probably thinking like, geez, you're going to ruin the only fun thing. Yes, absolutely. Going to ruin it, but in the interest of the future. So you want to see who can work with him. Maybe a Slafkovsky could work with Caulfield. Maybe Dach and Caulfield, and you bring Suzuki to another line. I think Nick Suzuki can essentially play with anyone, and he can provide better defensive play than most of his teammates. So I would be interested in splitting those two up. It's funny because they are going to be the foundation for a long time, and everyone assumed it was going to be like a Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews thing. I don't know if I see that just yet. So given Suzuki's playmaking skills, he could help some of the 700 veterans score a goal, and then maybe a little bit of an easier usage for on the second line with Doc and Caulfield would be interesting. Yes, so as Jen points out, she's saying competitive close games like we had to start the year were great. Yeah, fun to watch. The Habs were like chaotic fun at the beginning of the season. And now a lot of that again was c'est de la chance, là. Guys like Montembeault playing out of his mind, but they were fun to watch. And that was the right move for Montreal. Habs fans can handle a rebuild as long as it's like a little bit fun to watch. So the last few starts, as Jen points out, are a confidence killer, and they do make you want to turn off the TV, right? So, but if guys like Richard and Slavkovsky get a legitimate chance, you know, I know the Habs have been scoring on the power play, but like, do you really think that's going to be sustainable? Maybe you prop those guys up, and you kind of forget about getting a 4th round pick for Dadonov. No one's going to give you anything for getting Dadonov. I think the really what Kent Hughes is trying to do is not retain salary. That's like his only goal is to not retain salary, and there's value there long term, but it comes to a point where, you know, is the value of not having that extra cap space long term more important than destroying their confidence? Like, I think Nick Suzuki is incredibly frustrated right now. It's a big test. He's a very young captain, and trust me, like, this guy does not get rattled very easily, but he loves to win. Caden Goalie loves to win. Cole Caulfield, these are guys that just obsessed with winning. So there's the confidence side we have to even out with all of that. Yeah, as Claire points out, it didn't work out too well when they separate. I agree, but it hasn't been much of a trial. Paper Doll's also saying, not sure Caulfield knows how to score without Nick. Other way around. Okay, fair enough. I think those two actually just don't work defensively. I think that's their biggest woe. And we're not seeing Suzuki control the middle of the ice as well as he did last year. So I don't know. Maybe it's worth a shot, but you know, when we talk about spreading the talent, there's not a lot of talent to spread around. It's more, it's closer to a farmer putting manure on his fields. So you really have to be careful where you go. But I don't see the issue in giving it a shot, and it'll give writers something to write about. Yeah, well, Jen points out you don't want to see either demoted or dropped or whatnot, and absolutely, I get that. But I feel like St. Louis tends to roll his lines like pretty evenly in terms of at least the top 9, right? So whatever line Slavkovsky isn't on, they they get good minutes, and yeah, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. Paper Dolls? Who are you saying someone looks lazy? Who looks lazy and slow and lazy? Me? I mean, fair enough. Who looks slow and lazy? You're probably talking about Suzuki. No. Ça, c'est de la bouillie pour les chats, ça. Colin McDonald in the chat mentioning here, unfortunately, it's going to be a year of waiting to unload contracts for players not contributing. Yeah, and I don't have Cap Friendly in front of me, but I believe, so we have Drouin, gone. And I love my buddy Drouin, but it's time to cut the cord there. And il y a quelqu'un d'autre. Who's the other person that's very, very, very gone? Okay, well, first of all, you know, Josh Anderson, he's gone. He's going to be traded, I believe. I don't have any inside information, but I know, like, for example, the Flames are interested in him. The Devils are interested in him. So he fits the mold of, like, a playoff guy perfectly. And Sean Monahan, if he can get healthy, which I'm starting to look back at that game in Vancouver and be like, wow, that was a cool story that might have tanked a first-round pick. Because when you look at the trade market right now, there's Bo Horvat, and then as centers, that's it. Like, you have Sean Monahan and Max Domi, because Jonathan Taves is probably staying in Chicago. So, you know, that was kind of frustrating from a asset management standpoint. I understand why you want to play against Vancouver, but you didn't have to play him the next night, right? That was a little. Vancouver, right? No, Calgary. Ça va bien, mon affaire. They didn't have to play him in Vancouver the next game. Okay, as John Wayne points out, okay, we're getting to the meat and potatoes here. So there's obviously Monahan, Dadonov. I still like that move for the Canadiens because, you know, they got them out of a jam with Weber. Although I didn't like the way it ended with Weber. I feel like he just kind of like disappeared, and anyways. But unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out. And I feel like he's one of the guys that's actually played well, but it's been a little bit unlucky. Paul Byron, malheureusement, he's not. Things are going actually pretty bad in his rehab, and it's really sketchy with hips. I was talking to a surgeon about just when a player gets a hip injury, and he was saying knees and shoulders, like this is the most rotation you can do on your body, right? And that's very difficult, but there's not many things that have as much stress on it as your hips, so they have to be structurally sound. Look at me being all medical, and it's one of the toughest. Other than back, I'd say it's probably one of the toughest things to rebound from. So we wish Paul Byron, Ottawa native, used to go to Le Bup in Gatineau, or Hull. We wish him a very good rehabilitation, because Paul Byron scored some of the coolest goals. Like his goal against Toronto, where he's on the breakaway, shorthanded, game-winning goal. That was just magical. So cheers for Paul Byron, and I hope this isn't the end of his career. But honestly, and you'll hear this a lot, Paul Byron, c'est un des bons. He's one of the... See, I'm jumping back into the bilingualism. See, he's really one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I remember once I was actually having a tough time in Brossard. I was just getting some bad news from back home, and I was actually sitting out in the field, just kind of getting my head straight, and Byron actually came by, just like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? I just want to make sure, and I thought that was, like, he drove and then turned around and came back, and I was like, no, that's fine. I'm just thinking in a field, and to me, that was pretty darn cool. Oh, Hoffman. Is Hoffman gone, Claire, this year? No, Hoffman Yakar. All right, I'm gonna. You know what? I can just pull up Cap Friendly like a big boy. I believe Mike Hoffman has several years left, or at least 2 years left. 1 year left. How many years left? Oh, and also don't forget. I think personally they're gonna buy out Armia. You have no choice at this point. It'll come with about $2 million in alleviated funds, and also it'll help you sign Cole Caulfield, who's on pace for 47 goals. 47 goals. I mean, and Montreal has some of the worst underlying numbers in the modern history of the NHL. So that's pretty... Imagine what this guy could do with an efficient power play. We saw it the last few games. And a team that isn't the bunch of suckiest sucks that have ever sucked. I think Cole Caulfield can do some magical things. Okay, one more year on Hoffman. Yeah, okay. One more year on Hoffman. You know what? I'm going to say this about Mike Hoffman. I don't think he's been the issue whatsoever. I know everyone loves to pile on to Mr. Hoffman, but in the grand scheme of things, like in the pantheon of useless wingers, Mike Hoffman isn't even close to being in that lineup. So I don't mind him this year. And actually, believe it or not, his underlying numbers are probably the best on the team. Like, we're talking about the Habs control like 60% of the scoring chances when he's on the ice. And the team itself controls about 40%. So if this guy was Suzuki, we'd be singing his praises. We'd be saying, man, he's good. But unfortunately, Mike comes with a little bit of a stigma in that he looks lazy out there. And I kind of get that. Yeah, so as Paper Doll says, he's been, playing well enough, well enough. Okay, so Hoffman and Edmondson. Oh, is it Edmondson as well? See, I said we weren't going to get rid of people in trade. Let's go take a look at Hoffman or Edmondson. Canadiens Cap Friendly. Watch Marc Google on New Year's Eve. Okay. And also, don't forget, now they know what's going to happen with Price. So, last year, they actually had a deal in place. Who was it? Before they made the Monahan trade. Someone can remind me in the chat if they know. But they had a trade in place, but they didn't know if Carey Price was going to be retired or not at that point. So they actually nixed it. And once the Monahan thing, they knew about Price at that time. I know they only announced it a little bit later, but by then they knew. So it's funny, you can look back there and see how terribly they lied about it. Not lied, obviously. It's not. I didn't mean it that way. They were just terribly coy about it. It did not work. Okay, so next year you're looking at... Okay, there's about 70 million. Okay, with buried cap. So it's going to go up to 83, and that's with 17 players. Obviously, there's time to see what guys like Yulunen can do. There's a lot of people knocking at the door. So if you can move Josh Anderson, which I think you can, you're getting another what's Josh Anderson 5.5 until 2055. So you're going to have about $15 to $20 million to work with, which should be pretty fun for him. And don't forget, other teams will be cap strapped. So there's going to be an opportunity for Hughes to Monahan it one more time. Teams, the biggest commodity in the NHL right now is cap space. So the Canadiens should have a decent amount of that. Yeah, as Nicholas says, yeah, the thing with Hoffman is that, and I used to live in Ottawa, so I watched him play a lot again. Like this guy scores, and he's no offense to Cole Caulfield, who, by the way, by scoring 20 goals before the age of 22, I believe he turns 22 tomorrow. So that's pretty cool. He gets to celebrate his birthday with Mama Caulfield. He's the third Canadiens player to score 20 before the age of, or at the age of 21. So Stéphane Richer and Guy Lafleur. That's it. End of list. Pas pire, so pas pire du tout. Again, especially since it's one of the youngest teams in the league. But yeah, okay, so going back to that, what I was going with this is that Hoffman's the only guy that scored 20 goals 6 years in a row. And he's going to do it again this year. So as much as we criticize him, and I know he's an easy target, I really feel like it's more of a reputation thing in his case. Yes, he shoots from everywhere. Like, this guy is the Danny Heatley of 2020. If he's in the corner behind the net, he'll shoot. But for a team that doesn't put a lot of shots on net, doesn't create a lot of scoring chances, that's not my biggest worry. So I actually think Hoffman's been pretty good for the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah, okay, so as John Wayne points out here with Edmondson's gonna, in my opinion, see, there's a risk because you don't want to gut your entire locker room, right? You don't want to take out like the few people that are actually being a mentor. And I think just by looking at Edmondson, he's such a nice guy. When I was at the red and white scrimmage, I was looking for hot dogs. Actually, I was in the Salon Jacques Beauchamp, and Goalie came by. Quick chat, and then Edmondson came by, and he was just like he was like, "Hey, nice to meet you," and he was excited to meet people. So to me, that just shows, I like how when athletes treat us little people as people, it's always fun. And I honestly do think that he's a mentor. At one point, if you're gonna get a good pick for him, make it happen. And I think, from what I heard, John, the price will be about what they got for, or what Savard went for back in the day, or maybe Ben Sherratt. So, we're talking about a first round pick here. Good chance. However, the one thing that might hold back these trades is that everybody knows the next draft is going to be amazing. Top 5 in that draft might have gone first overall last year. So, I don't know if they'll be able to pry those out of their hands, but I will tell you now that the Montreal Canadiens are in pretty good position to get another first, whether it's Edmondson or Sean Monahan. Again, he has to be healthy, or a combination. Or even the year after, if teams aren't willing to, you can defer it if teams aren't willing to draft next year. But Kent Hughes has made it quite clear he wants a third first-round pick, which would make 5 in 2 years, which is pretty amazing. Oh, and speaking about first-round picks, anyone watching Philip Méchard at the World Juniors? Because he's picking up steam, and that is fun. Okay, as Paper Dolls mentions here about Edmondson, yeah, he seems nice. Okay, that was just me trying to be like, yeah, they're human, but if we go in the full, business style, yeah, débarras, come immediately trade them off, especially because there's a myth about these type of defensemen, even though the numbers are horrible, that they're rough and tumble, and I think there's actually more value to that in the playoffs, because in the playoffs, it's a war of attrition, right? So if you're I was gonna say, if you're pounding a guy, if you're constantly hitting the same guy, at that point, you might create injuries, etc. It is a war of attrition, so I think playoff teams, would be interested in his services. Okay. You like Paper Dolls mentions to Nicholas, fan bases choose a whipping boy all year, but the Canadiens have had their fair share. Actually, I feel like guys like Armia and Dadonov kind of, Habs fans didn't even bother to get upset about it. It was like, fine. So that's a little different than usual. But yeah, in Montreal, no matter what, there are scapegoats. Now, I'll tell you this. In previous years, the scapegoats have almost always been the best player, whether it's Saku Koivu or whether it's Max Pacioretty. So it's refreshing, I guess, to see the ire go towards the ones that are actually not helping them win. Guys like Yoel Armia, who I think he's been playing kind of okay, yeah, really buttering it on there. But to me, that was probably one of Marc Bergevin's biggest mistakes, because when you look at him, his scoring rate was about the same as Arbor Jacki produced in the OHL, right? there wasn't much to see there, but they were kind of high off their own supply due to the playoff run. So, and he wins board battles, which he does. He really does. But yeah, c'est la fin pour Yoel Armia. I would, the second the buyout window opens, bought out. Yeah, okay, and there's a mention here that, real quick, yeah, John Meshar is having a good tournament. He mentions that Kapanen is having a good tournament, and Joshua Roy, who is he's still third in tournament scoring. I actually like what I've seen from Adam Engstrom at the World Juniors. Adam Engstrom, keep him on your mind. He's a guy that will probably surprise at the next training camp. When I got to development camp, and I was just, I like to throw out the numbers and kind of just get a better idea of who's doing what. Then look them up later. So just so my impressions aren't, and they don't have their names on. It's just a little number on their helmet. So the guys that impressed me the most were Adam Enstrom and Anthony Richard. They both had just a fantastic... And William Trudeau actually looked really good. But Engstrom is so smooth skating. And we have to keep in mind he's playing professional hockey. An 18-year-old top pairing for Rogel. I'm sorry. Rogel? I can't nail it. But, which is really impressive because in Europe in particular... Well, actually, I don't know why in particular, but just like the NHL, you rarely get on the top pairing as an 18-year-old unless you're Victor Mete, and Marc Bergevin forgot to plan for the future. So, Adam Engstrom, smooth skating. There's like his, like butter. It's fantastic to see, and he's playing top pairing for Sweden as well, and he's been a very, very good player. So he's actually on right now. No, is Engstrom? Are you talking about Engstrom being overage, John? I believe. Oh, he just turned 19, right? But he was 18. The overager they got this year was Jared Davidson, who, by the way, man, he keeps scoring. Like, he's 20 years old. You want him to score in the WHL, but for fans of the sweet science, he knocked a guy out with one punch tonight. So you don't want to see minor players, get hurt. Honestly, I don't. I don't know why I said that with a smile. But Jared Davidson, kind of interesting there. So he's looking like just. You don't want him to be the Corey Locke of this season, but he's been pretty darn good. Okay, so we're going to... I think that's going to be the end of it because, listen, you all have stuff to do. I have stuff to do. All my friends are right off camera. But we're going to end it right now. I did want to say... Oh, John Wayne mentions that he is 19. Okay, I get it. Sorry that he didn't get drafted his first eligibility. Yeah, smart. But I like Petteri Nurmi, who's obviously older. He's looked good too. So this is the end of Game Over for this season. I just want to thank everybody because we've gotten a ton of support. If you want to I forgot to tell you, you got to like and subscribe because I'm 700 years old. I grew up without internet. I had to, what do you call it? Encarta. Encarta was my internet. It's like a series of floppies, and then we got CDs at one point. So, it's pretty darn cool that you're all here. If you want to like and subscribe and do all this stuff that I never tell you to do, that would be great. We're going to keep going next year, and hopefully have a little bit more to talk about in terms of fun. But we get to watch Caulfield come close to a 50-goal pace, which is very fun. And, Colin McDonald, Happy New Year. Happy New Year from Vietnam. So does that mean... I'm terrible with time hours. France is 7 behind? I don't know why. And that means Vietnam is... I'll just count backwards. Anyways, cheers to you. Cheers, Claire. Cheers, John. Cheers, Paper Doll. Cheers, everybody. I really appreciate all of you. And Robert, thanks for your excellent work moderating the chat. Joyeuse Noël. Happy Tanksember. That was a fantastic month for the tank. And honestly, I just hope that everybody has a great new year. Take advantage of every single day because you never know what's going to happen. So live life to its fullest. It's no better to be safe than sorry. Merci tout le monde. Au revoir. I'll see you the next Montreal Canadiens game. Game over after every single Habs game. Salut la visite.